Hello, I'm Deanna Meth, Senior Lecturer at Queensland University of Technology, Brisbane, Australia. Since 2018, as a curriculum and learning designer, I have collaborated with design academics to develop and enable the teaching of a new suite of units in the Bachelor of Design degree, known as the Impact Labs. This short video introduces the Impact Labs and gives you an overview of our research published in a special issue of Teaching in Higher Education on the teaching of environmentally just sustainability. Before beginning, as authors based in Misiaszek, Brisbane, Australia, we would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where we live and work, lands that have never been ceded. We pay our deep respects to their elders, laws, customs and creation spirits, recognizing that these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning. We acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. Transdisciplinary Impact Lab units were originally introduced to the Bachelor of Design degree at QUT as a scaffolded suite of units spanning the 3-year design course. Students from across 7 design disciplines undertake Labs 1 to 4, titled Place, People, Planet and Purpose, through a combination of lectures, studios, workshops and design intensives. The overall pedagogic aims of the labs are to draw together for students their knowledge, skills and mindsets for a deeper understanding of themselves and their design practice, including beyond their own disciplinary and personal contexts. The main figure summarizes the curricular aims and concepts that ensure continuity in students' learning and development across the labs. With a future-focused intent, the labs aim to develop students' critical understandings of social, environmental and global issues and the interdependencies among, for example, ecologies, social justice and sustainability. There is explicit discussion of unjust and unsustainable design practices and exploration of regenerative design processes. Students consider concepts of privilege, place-based consciousness, and reflect on the influence of their own perspectives. Students are encouraged to develop holistic and ethical design solutions, and as labs progress, apply learned approaches to their profession-specific design practice. Such content and pedagogies are fundamental to the lab's underpinning framework of transformative learning. Successfully addressing notoriously complex educational challenges, including authentic, future-focused transdisciplinary learning and sustainable industry partnerships, the model has been recognized through national and global awards and academic peer feedback. While this certainly makes for a good story, ticking all the right boxes, responding to ongoing student and staff feedback, the labs are continually evolving. We recognize how important it is that we as educators strive to continually evaluate and reflect on this work. Much of our research to date has focused on pedagogies and teaching, and student feedback over this time has been very positive. But as reflective educators, we also realize the skepticism that many academics and students hold for units of this nature. In the first instance, not overtly connected to a discipline, units such as these are often perceived as generic and somewhat fluffy and lacking in hard knowledge. But more than this, we know that in the very naming of the labs as Impact Labs, we were also making a larger claim about their educational aims and hopefully also students' learning outcomes. We are also alert to the accusations of the dressing up of higher education to its customers in this market-led environment, and one student's view of impact, as some word chosen to sound impressive for the labs, reflects this skepticism clearly. Fortunately, this was not the position of most students. However, we needed to understand more deeply whether we were meeting our educational aims. For the majority of academics worldwide, the impact agenda will not be new. Many institutional and national research bodies and funding systems currently or in the past have measures in place related to research impact. More recently, an explicit link has been made between impact and sustainability in the Times Higher Education Global Impact Rankings, where universities are measured in relation to the ways in which they address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But impact agendas have not always been popular, and critics have noted their links to accountability measures and economic outcomes. We also see such market-oriented interpretations and expectations in terms such as development and innovation, terms similarly aligned to impact and sustainability endeavours. Tulloch and Nielsen 2014 note how these terms negate more radical sustainability discourses that seek to challenge the industrial growth paradigm, as well as limiting discussions on justice-based environmental sustainability. Most crucially, as design education units, we needed to confront global criticism of design's role in perpetuating social and ecological injustices. In 2012, Escobar noted the prominence of technocratic and market-centered design approaches that don't sufficiently address their capitalist drivers. In discussing the principles of the Design Justice Network, Costanza Chock in 2020 notes the role design plays in mediating our realities, society, and planet, and the principles decenter the role of the designer to allow for a reconnection to Earth and each other, with a recentering towards people historically marginalized from design processes. We felt it was important to explore whether the labs, and in particular their claim of impact, enabled a more radical sustainability discourse and design practice. As part of a course-wide longitudinal action research study, results presented in our paper relate specifically to one question within an Impact Lab student evaluation survey run annually from 2020 to 2022. We asked students to describe what they understood by the term impact as it related to the Impact Labs. Subsequent thematic analysis of 235 responses allowed the iterative development of themes, and this was informed interpretively by a critical reading of research literature related to areas introduced above, including concepts such as design justice and impact. The focus of our research questions lay in better understanding how students were interpreting impact in relation to their learning in the labs, and the messages this then gave us in relation to our educational aspirations in moving students towards both understanding and practicing more critical and radical justice-based design. In terms of our key findings, students rightly interpret impact as a complex, multifaceted, and multidirectional concept. They also recognize their roles as designers and their agency in design work. Some students' interpretations tended more towards a market or self-focused interpretation. There are overall positive messages regarding design justice and ethics, with students showing understandings of the consequences of their designs, the connectivity of systems, and the ways in which their worldviews might influence their design outcomes. Within the construct of impact, there are, however, some elements of design justice where we believe students' understandings and practices remain relatively immature. We find that some of their interpretations remained closer to impact as being on or towards one thing, either themselves or a product or solution, where they as designers are seen as solely responsible for the change. This way of working is not the same as notions of working with, a key element to shifting the often uneven power dynamics in design towards a more relational and responsive practice. Connected to this is the relative absence of notions of co-design as empowerment and liberation from injustices. The study holds valuable messages for use of the term across design, higher education, and industry sectors seeking to quantify and consider their outcomes more critically. We note the complex and sometimes loaded nature of the term impact and acknowledge as educators that impact as a term in the context of design education might sometimes conflict with what we're aiming to deliver. There is a causality in using such a term, as it is woven through our pedagogies and curriculum, and also externally driven by the ways in which it appears across a range of higher education agendas, as well as design and wider industry discourses. As observed in higher education and sustainability discourses, a key learning for us is that impact is just as problematically applied as its close cousins, development, innovation, and progress, that have been shown to often embody narrow and disconnected practices fueled by marketized agendas. As such, we urge caution in how we as educators help to construct these interpretations moving forwards, and in the use of the term by others, for example in policy making or industry. If such a term is to be used, we further contend that, as argued by Misiaszek and Rodrigues for development in 2022, consideration of impact must always be grounded in justice-based environmental sustainability. Thank you for watching this video summary of our paper. Our full paper is available in the Teaching in Higher Education special issue on the teaching of environmentally just sustainability. A comprehensive list of references pertaining to this research is attached to the published paper.